Welcome to Candy Be Knittin'. I'm Candy. I be knitting. Hope you be knitting too. And today I'm going to talk to you all about socks. I've started getting into socks pretty quickly, maybe within 6 months of knitting, because it just seemed like the next natural progression. People talk about, you know, twisted cast-ons and turning a heel and grafting the toe, and it just seemed very daunting, but also like, those are some skills I probably want to learn. Now that I mention it, I did start off, I bought a book about knitting socks flat because I was very intimidated by knitting in the round, but I have not knit a single sock out of that book. And so today I just thought I would run through how I actually knit my socks. I'll show you some examples of things I've knit over my knitting career, and just how I like to knit my socks, my preferences, find out whether I'm team DPNs or team circular needles. So I'll start off with the first sock I knit. My husband likes to wear footy socks around the house. He likes warm feet. And so he asked me to make him some little house slippers. And so I made him these out of a Karen latte cake. And you'll notice it is very fuzzy yarn. I would recommend making house socks, thicker socks with your first sock. Would not recommend using a fuzzy yarn. So the thing with the thick yarn, it goes by a lot quicker. I literally knit my first sock in a day, and I was able to get through all of the big parts that were intimidating to me. Joining in the round, doing the heel turns, picking up stitches, kitchenering, grafting the toe. And that was great. It was a great learning experience. The thing with the fuzzy yarn, very difficult cast on. The thing that I find difficult with socks is making sure my cast on for top down socks is comfortable, not too tight, not messy. Very hard to see with fuzzy yarn. Very difficult to see where I was picking up my stitches. But you'll notice I made a functional sock, so it is not impossible, especially for your first sock. So if you're intimidated by the sock process, if I can do this in a weekend with yarn from hell, I believe in anybody else. But I want to get into how I've come to, I guess, perfect my sock recipe, if you will. My first socks, I do like to wear socks that I can actually wear outside in shoes. So that's fingering weight yarn. And I do like top down because that's just how I learned, and that's my preference. When I talk to other knitters, it seems like most people, and I'm speaking very generally, like to they start off with their first sock, and whether it's magically, whether it's DPNs, etc., mostly the first thing you do is what you keep on doing. Like if the toe works for you, then, oh, that's great. You made a sock that fits a human foot, and you did it toe down, you did it cuff up. Not cuff up, that is not a sock. Toe up. You did it on circulars. Most people tend to stick to that, and I am a creature of habit, especially when it comes to making a sock that actually fits my foot. So fingering weight yarn, I use size 0 DPNs, and I cast on 72 stitches. I have a size 9.5 to 10 US woman's foot, and I find that as far as commercially available socks, I am on the bigger end of the foot spectrum. And so socks tend to be very tight on me. I tend to have marks on my feet from tight socks at the end of the day. This is just regular Hanes, one size fits most socks. So going into knitting socks, I knew that I needed something that was going to be very comfortable for my foot. And so this is my preferred sock, and I'm not going to show it for too long because I've been wearing this sock for over a year, so it doesn't look that great anymore. But I like the idea of doing an ankle. One, it goes by quicker. Two, I don't have that tightness around the upper part of my calf that tends to be a little bit wider around. And three, that's just the type of sock I wear. I do I wouldn't call myself sporty, but I am rather active, so I don't really have a big need for big showy socks. I like a nice no-show ankle sock, throw on some sneakers kind of person. I do like cuff down because I like the cleanness of my cast on. When I bind off from toe up, it tends to flare a little bit, and I feel like I can get a really neat cuff and a really well-fitting cuff from top down. And I find toe up socks, the Jenny's Magic Cast On to be, or Judy's Magic Cast On to be very fiddly, for lack of a better word. And so top down, I get a nice structured cuff. I always, because I do size 0 needles and I know I'm a tight knitter, I do my cast on 72 stitches around 2 double pointed needles held together. And that gives me the perfect cuff. It looks great. I like a nice rib because it gives me a nice little stretch. Then I go into my heel flap and gusset almost immediately after I finish that 2 to 3 inch rib cuff. And also I like, as a knitter, if I'm doing a hat, if I'm doing mittens, if I'm doing a sweater, I love a 2 to 3 inch cuff. Like a lot of patterns will be like a 1 inch cuff. And I just don't find it to be pleasing to the eye, to me. Just maybe because I'm slightly on the taller side, I have slightly bigger feet. I like a substantial looking cuff, a substantial looking rib on my hat. And so we go down in the heel flap and gusset. Once again, my issues with commercial socks is 1, they don't fit very well. 2, they wear out very easily, usually in the back of my foot. It rubs against the back of my shoes. And so a heel flap and gusset, especially with like the slip stitch detail, it creates this nice tight fabric. That's also why I love size 0 needles. I'm already a tight knitter. I'm already a tight knitter. And most people, will knit their socks on size 1, size 2, US sizes, by the way, US needles. And I don't like that fabric. It just seems very just kind of loosey-goosey, especially using superwash yarn that I know is going to grow over time and grow to fit my foot. I like that nice tight fabric, and I know it's going to last a little bit longer. And just like most vanilla patterns, I think the first sock pattern that I found on Ravelry was Meaghan Schmaltz, the Unapologetic Knitter. She has a couple of vanilla sock recipes, and every once in a while I go on Ravelry and I look at the free vanilla sock patterns just to see if I'm missing something. But that pattern pretty much is what I've modeled, what I like to do after I get down to the top ridge of my foot to like where my baby toe. I have a pretty petite baby toe, and so the top of my foot kind of goes straight across, and I get up to there, start doing the decreases for my toe. Get down to, if I start off with 72 stitches, I get down to 12 stitches, graft my toe, and I'm done. I really don't tend to have second sock syndrome. A lot of people knit the first sock and really get hung up because it's like, oh God, I gotta go do that all again. Mostly I knit socks on the go. When I'm in the car, at church, if I take the kids to the playground. It's mostly like just kind of a busy project. So it never feels like a chore. It's just like, oh, this is this extra thing I have. I'm not in a rush. When I get them done, they're done. But the nice thing about, to me, when it comes to second sock syndrome or even second sleeve syndrome, I like that I have a prototype. Like if my cast on was too tight, if I didn't like the way, a certain, whatever went wrong on the first sock, the second sock is my opportunity to perfect that. And so it's just like, oh, just do the same exact thing you just did, because you figured out all the problems, anything that could have hung yourself up. And then instead of sitting there like pulling out my tape measure and measuring things, I just lay it against the first sock. I'm like, okay, that's about right. I do find my gauge changes a bit. For the most part, I can get 12 rows per inch. That's my goal. But you never really, it's never going to be perfect. I'm a human, I'm not a machine. And so the second sock does tend to be a little tighter just because I have that confidence and I'm rocking and rolling. But in the end, it all kind of comes out in the wash, literally. The other thing too, DPNs. The reason I like to knit on DPNs is, one, that's how I learned to knit a sock. So that's how I'm comfortable. Something about magic loop just feels like I'm just like, pull it all the way out, and then you start again, and then I don't know what the front and the back is, and I have stitch markers. And the thing I like about DPNs, and let me show you, this is a sock that I'm working on right now, and it's like literally the very beginning of the sock. I have my instep stitches on 2 needles, and then this back stitch, this back needle, that's my heel. And so when I get to the heel, I have it already kind of parsed out. So if there's like some sort of design detail, if there's a certain number I'm going for, whatever, I can use the DPNs to measure that without counting. So I always know where my beginning of round is. And I'm never like, oh, is this, I do that a lot where I knit in the round, which is not a big deal. But sometimes I'll be knitting in the round. I'm like, oh, where's my beginning of round? And then I end up counting rounds. And here, my beginning of round is where my heel is. And I know that because each needle has different number of stitches on it. And I would parse them out differently if I was working on a cable. I recently did a sock with a slip stitch pattern, and I just make sure each needle has the appropriate amount of stitches on it. And I find that works better with the way my brain works. So that's that. I will show you this sock I just started. I finished this week. It's Pair, or it's Companion, there we go. And here it is. This sock is, Stephen West recently, within the last year, has gotten into sock design, and he's come out with 2 sock designs. One is he's come out with more sock designs, but 2 free sock designs, which that's my favorite word when it comes to Ravelry. He has a fingering weight version and a DK version, and this is the fingering weight version. And his sample picture is really cool. Like, I want to make the actual sample picture that he has. The cuff is a different color, the top of the sock is a different color, the heel is a different, each section of the sock is a different color, because it's meant to inspire use of scraps, because you've made a huge Stephen West shawl and you've got all this great fingering yarn left over. Here I just did contrasting heels, toes, cuffs. You see I have a nice 2-inch cuff, which actually the pattern calls for, so me and Stephen West are like this when it comes to like 1-inch cuff. What am I supposed to do with that? The thing that's different about his sock, and I'm gonna make a little puppet here, is he does this garter stitch heel, and I'm not sure how I feel about that. I wanted to try it because I like to try different things, even though I know it works for me, but also knitting is supposed to be fun and experimental. The thing I don't care for is garter stitch has a lot of stretch. And so if your foot needs that, then go for it. This is a great pattern for that. The issue with my foot is that I have a very, it's gonna sound very bizarre. I have a shapely foot, like, it's curved. So my heel is like this, and the ball of my foot is wider than the heel of my foot, basically. My husband has very flat, very square feet. And so that's the best thing about knitting socks, though, is that you can find the things that work for me. And I like that heel flap and gusset I'm showing you because it really comes in really tight on the back of the heel. And I need that because, like I said, that's where my foot rubs the most. That's the narrowest part of my foot. And so I can just see this being super stretchy. And that's also the reason I don't like a slip stitch, like short row heel, because you had that stockinette stitch that just feels like it's really gonna stretch out, especially, like I said, on superwash yarn. The yarn for this, speaking of yarn, the body of the sock is actually my favorite sock yarn, and that is Sock Ease by Lion Brand. So this sock, which was one of the first socks I the first socks I made with some of the first yarn I bought, is Lion Brand Mani Petty. And maybe one day this podcast will blow up, and Lion Brand will get, will have their attention drawn to me. But Lion Brand has a great legacy of making really great yarns and then discontinuing them. And so my very first time, when I first started knitting, I was like, I'm gonna order a box of yarn from Lion Brand because, people like their yarn and I just want to see what they got. And I ordered some mani-pedi because I knew eventually I wanted to get into sock knitting, and that was their sock yarn at the time. At the time, mani-pedi came in 50-gram balls. And so I ordered a bunch of different colors, didn't realize that 50 grams is cutting it really close for a size 9.5 to 10 foot. That's neither here nor there. But I still have that yarn, which is great. I don't have the other one with me, but I got nearly 2 pairs of socks out of the 50-gram ball. I got to the toe of my other one and had to use a different color, and then my heel flap is a different color on my other sock. This yarn is Sock Ease, which is their 100-gram yarn. That is sock yarn. It's merino nylon blend, and they've since discontinued that yarn. I ordered some of that too when I first started. I got that in a mystery bag, I think, and that's how you know it's being discontinued, when it's in the mystery bag. And I was like, oh wow, this is awesome. There's a commercially made sock yarn and it's great colors and blah 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 blah. They discontinued it. This Sockies, this is I think it's the Martini, I don't know why it's called. It's the Martini colorway. They brought it back early this year, and they say it's for a limited time only, and it's from the vault. And so I guess maybe that's their idea, is that they discontinue these yarns so then they can bring them back and people will be excited about it. It worked. I bought at least one in every color. Then it went on clearance, and then I bought more in every color because it's reasonably priced yarn. I think full price, it's about $10 a ball. I got it 50% off when it was on clearance. That's $5 a ball. And if I really work my math right, I can get 2 pairs of ankle socks for myself, or I can get a nice 6-inch leg like this, and then have a little bit more to do contrasting socks some other place. So I really like that. The contrasting color you see here is a new to me yarn that I've always wanted to try, and that's the Knit Picks Felici fingering weight yarn, which is also recently on clearance. You're probably noticing a trend. I do like a good deal, and I've always wanted to try it. It's much softer than the Sockies, which I don't mind the roughness because it's on my feet. My feet aren't super sensitive, but this is very soft, and I like it a lot. The colors are okay. I bought a few of the solids because I knew I wanted to try out contrasting heels, toes, cuffs. But the thing about Knit Picks Felici, you see this Lion Brand sock has, kind of almost like random speckling and stripes. The Felici stripes, they're kind of known for being very straightforward very straightforward stripes. And so they're like about 1-inch stripes, and I'm intrigued by the idea of having 2 matching socks. And so this is the Lakeside Gelato colorway, and that's going to be my next pair of socks. And I kind of want to play around with, I know these go on my feet. I know they're going to get worn out and worn every day, but I kind of want to do like matching from the top down socks and make the stripes match. So they're twins rather than cousin socks. And I'm gonna try to I recently bought a size 0 40-inch circular needle. So I'm gonna try 2 at a time, which I've tried 2 at a time knitting before. I've tried 2 at a time sleeves, and it felt super cumbersome. I don't know how portable it's gonna be. It might be my in-the-house project, but that's what I got planned. Some other goals I have, not sock knitting wise, is I want to try 2 at a time knitting. I told you my husband likes the hand knit socks. I've made him in the past, and so I want to kind of perfect what his perfect sock would be. And I was just I was watching Andrea Mary's I'll Knit If I Want To podcast, and she was talking about how she loves a Flegel heel because she is flat-footed, and she finds that heel works the best for her. and I believe a lot of her patterns involve a fleagle heel. The thing about fleagle heel is they're knit toe up, which I'm not super excited about, but anything worth doing is worth doing well. And so I really want to, diversify myself. And I've never tried an Andrea Mallory pattern before, so that might be something exciting. I also want to do maybe some more color work. I want to I love this because it's something very simple that looks pretty fancy because it has like this, nice speckled yarn, fun stripes, bright colors. But I want to get more into solid yarn or even tonal yarn and knitting socks with that, just because I want to do more lace work, more cables, get more intricate with my sock knitting. I own a stitch dictionary, and so it's very appealing to me to pull out my stitch dictionary and maybe add some cables because I know how to do cables now, or add a lace pattern and just have a little bit more fun with the design part of it, because I've had a lot of fun with the yarn and doing very basic socks. And so transitioning into more plain, even like a white pair of lacy socks, that just sounds so like just the tops. And that's the thing I like about sock knitting. It's like this little favor you can do for yourself, do for others, where it seems, especially in 2023, it seems very extra. I can go to Target and get a pack of 12 socks for $8. But like I said before, those socks are gonna feel terrible and look terrible and fall apart. Or I can take the time to kind of love on myself and give myself what I deserve. I deserve to have socks that fit my feet and that make me feel confident and feel good in my sneakers. A lot of people, be like, oh, it's summertime, it's pretty hot outside, wouldn't wear wool socks. I actually like wool socks in the summertime because I am active, I am out and about, going, to amusement parks with my family. I put on my wool socks and my sneakers because just the way the wool interacts with sweat, I'm gonna get gross for a second, is very different than commercially made spandexy cotton socks. The feeling after walking around all day is very, very different. And like I said, they've lasted a long time. It's quite cost effective. Like I said, if I do a pair of socks out of this Lion Brand yarn, that's $5, plus my labor. Of course, my labor is worth something, but I also knit for fun and I enjoy knitting socks. That's pretty, it's more expensive than a Target Hanes Your Way sock, but for what you're getting for hand knit socks, that's a pretty good deal. Even if I go to like a sheep and wool festival and get a hand dyed yarn for $20, $25, even $30, and make hand knit socks out of that, I still feel like that's pretty worthwhile investment for something that's going to go on my feet. Foot health is very important, especially as I walk around a lot. Like I said, I'm very active with my family, very much out and about, and so it's very important to have something nice on your feet. I carry myself so much differently. You're in a meeting and you pull up your pants a little bit and you show off your socks. Like I said, I love that it's so portable to actually knit. And yeah, so y'all let me know what y'all think. Are you a top down? Are you a toe up? I have no interest in knitting socks. Oh, are you a 2 9-inch circular? Because I really, really want to try that, because I think it would complement the way I use my DPNs, would kind of match up perfectly with 9-inch circulars. That's what I've heard, at least. If you're, actually, not even the 9-inch circulars, the Addy flips. That's the next thing I want to try when I can justify buying more needles, because I have a lot of needles. That's the downside to using DPNs, is I have lost DPNs. I lose them in the couch, I lose them in the car. I do when I go to the thrift store. I always look through the knitting needles and I just buy size 0 DPNs because they're pretty interchangeable. I like kind of like the smoother metal. I have some that are a little on the rougher side, but they're pretty much all the same to me. These are a little bit more substantial than some of them are kind of flimsy. But it's just nice to have extras because I do lose them from time to time. I find them usually, but they size 0, it's, you know, with the shininess to them, they can blend in pretty. It's a needle in a haystack, basically. And so, yeah, I do like that idea of using maybe like the Addy Flips, Addy Clicks, or whatever they're called. Let me know if you've used those. And thank y'all for being here today. Once again, I be knitting. I hope you be knitting too. I hope you follow me on Instagram at Rulude. I hope you do all the YouTube things. You like, you comment, you subscribe, you share with your friends. And until the next time, I will see you. Thank you.